In this video, I'll be revealing my trading 212 portfolio. I'm sharing as I'm trying to be transparent with my audience, and I know people generally like this type of content. If it doesn't get enough attention, I may take it down as it is personal information. So do let me know your thoughts by giving the video a thumbs up, subscribing and commenting. And do remember, none of this is financial advice. It is strictly for entertainment and information purposes only. So this is my trading 212 portfolio. As you can see, I'm up over 19%. This was around 23% earlier in the week, but there has been a slight sell-off in the market which has reduced this gain. This may look impressive, but do remember that the market is near all-time highs at the moment. So many people who've been investing for at least a year or so will probably have similar figures. And if I do go back, I can see how I've performed over the past few months. So if we go back to the start of January, we can see the portfolio was up 16%. And if we go further back, we can see in December it was around 12%. So it has steadily grown over the past few months. So although this figure looks good right now, it has been a rocky road. So I did start this portfolio in 2021. I believe in February 2021. So you can see initially when I started it, I was actually in the red, and then I was down 7% at one point, and I do believe I was down a lot more. This chart only shows a month by month basis, so it doesn't really show the lows that my portfolio hit. So I was up 30% at one point. I think this was the peak of my portfolio, as I was heavily invested in my top 3 companies, which were Tesla, Nvidia and AMD, but I did sell those, which is why you will see the decline. So you can see at one point I have around 10k invested, and then it goes down to half of that. And the reason is, although my top positions were doing really well, I was heavily invested in high risky companies which were dragging my portfolio down. I was caught up in the SPAC and EV bubble, which was the hype around this period. I was up 13%. I did take some losses on my risky companies, but overall it was a net gain as I sold my winners to offset it. The portfolio then went to around 8%. The reason why I sold was because my portfolio was getting too volatile, and I decided I wanted to be more conservative and less volatile by focusing on ETFs, which you can probably see where the most of my money is currently invested in at the moment. I will get into that in more detail later on in the video. So since February 2022, when the market was doing really bad, we can see my portfolio wasn't actually doing too bad during this period. So we can see again it's gone red a bit there, 1.7%, and I think it went down here as well. And then as we know, 2023 was a very bullish year, so at the start it started off not too good, but since then it's been on the rise. And to be honest, I haven't been investing much in the past year or so. The reason is because I'm building cash for other investments. The best investment you can make is in yourself. So at this stage, I'm focusing on investing in myself. Now, in terms of my portfolio allocation, you can see I've kept it really simple. I've just got mainly ETFs, which is what I cover on this channel. So you can see my biggest holding, ISWD ETF, which I've covered on this channel. I've made a few videos on this. So that's 25% of my total portfolio. And then my second biggest holding is the Invesco Dow Jones Islamic ETF, IGDA, which is around 16%. And then the next biggest holding is the USA Islamic one. So I've not actually added much to this ETF, and I've actually reduced it. So I've sold some shares in this and added it to the world one, because as you may know from one of my previous videos, I don't like having all my eggs in the US market. I prefer to have a world ETF. So these top 2 are world ETFs, and the reason why I've got this as the biggest one is because it's not as volatile as this one. So this is more like the S&P 500. So I like to have both of these because I've got the growth of the Invesco Dow Jones ETF, and then I've also got the slightly more conservative World Islamic ETF, but these are the top two that are really contributing to the gains in my portfolio as they've gone up so much. And then my biggest holding in terms of individual company is Microsoft, so that's around 14% of my portfolio. This is also a huge weighting in all of these three ETFs, so I may even consider selling some of Microsoft as I'm already exposed to it through these ETFs. So just this ETF, I believe it's around a 17% holding in it, so 17% of this holding would be in Microsoft anyway. And then the fifth biggest holding is again another ETF. Unlike the other ETFs, this is a more thematic ETF as it is concentrated in the semiconductor industry. I did mention earlier in the video that I sold some of my shares in Nvidia and AMD, and then eventually in 2021 or 2022 I completely sold out of them as they were very volatile. However, I still wanted exposure to the semiconductor industry, so I started to invest in this ETF. This is not a halal ETF by name, but I do believe it's permissible to invest in, as the majority of the holdings are permissible to invest in. Also, it is permissible according to some halal stock screening apps. It's actually performed really well and is up over 80%, which is very impressive for an ETF. I don't think I've bought much of this since 2022. So yeah, that was just a quick look at my trading 212 portfolio and some of my biggest holdings. So you can see, just looking at the ETFs, they come up to around 63% of my portfolio. So the semiconductor one is slightly more risky, but if you take that out, then it's around just over 55% or so. And then you've also got Microsoft. So if I include Microsoft in the top 5, you can see the total weighting is around 77%. So Microsoft, I would say, is fairly conservative and it is diversified in its own right in the terms of the organization, as it sells software, hardware, cloud. It's in the cloud industry, even in the gaming industry. So it is quite a diversified company. So when you buy Microsoft, it almost feels like you are also buying an ETF as well. So yeah, that was just a brief look at my portfolio. If you'd like to see the individual holdings, then do let me know in the comments below and I may do a video covering them. But the main purpose was just to show you how much I have in ETFs. This is what most beginners should be investing in, as ETFs are diversified, less risky, and generally outperform individual stocks anyway. If you made it this far, then I would really appreciate if you could hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this.